Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting radio-exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.
Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit ActiveDay.com to apply.
Attention, you're listening to the Todd Huff Radio Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk radio. Be advised that the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. Here's your conservative, but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Yes, that's right, my friends. Hour number 2 of today's program. It's a pleasure to be here, as I mentioned in the first hour. A little groggy, went to the Pacers game last night, but was on cloud 9 after that victory in Game 3. So the Pacers take a 2-1 lead over the Oklahoma City Thunder. That place was rocking. Your host was screaming. My voice is 65% of what it normally is. I don't know. It's not normal. You might be able to hear it in my voice. So if that is what you're hearing, that's the explanation for why. Last hour, talked about a couple of things. We did talk about my Pacers. I won't do that this hour. I know we've got some very strict stick to the issues sort of folks here. We'll respect that. But listen, I also reserve the right, just as my father reserved the 1 row of Rice Krispie treats in the 90s when Mom would make Rice Krispies for our friends and I, my brother and I, and our friends. But we are going to keep that to a minimum. But that's coming, especially after games 4 and 5, which are coming up here soon. All right, so at the end of last hour, we were talking a little bit about AOC downplaying what's happening in Los Angeles, blaming Trump, of course, for inciting the violence. And she says, look, Democrats don't have to answer for every teenager who throws a rock. No one's asking for that, AOC. No one's asking for a teenager who peaceably throws a rock into a lake or skips a rock across a creek, or who's just throwing rocks, not at somebody, not at a piece of property, not in the city of Los Angeles, just out on the farm or in the park. If you're just, peaceably throwing some rocks, not at a person or property, that's not what's happening here. Have you seen the pictures, AOC? Have you seen the pictures of the impact that's caused by the rocks when they hit a police cruiser, when they hit another individual? Have you seen what happens here? I mean, there's shattered windshields. There's one individual, and it's in this article I've been referencing from foxnews.com. You will remember the name of the U.S. attorney named Bill Assaley. He said Elpidio Reyna, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that. Actually, I don't care, because he's one who's been charged with some of these violent acts against law enforcement. He's been identified as a suspect who threw rocks at federal officers, which was caught on film. By throwing rocks, I mean he looks like these police vehicles are going by, and he's winding up like he's trying to throw someone out at the plate from right field, like he's Bo Jackson, launching these rocks. And by the way, rocks can seem so, again, what does that mean? Is he little bitty pebbles? No, these are rocks that, by the way, if they hit somebody in the head, if they went through the side window and hit somebody in the head, they absolutely could kill a person. They absolutely could harm a person, no doubt, absolutely no question. And they could certainly kill a person. So he's been identified, and an image of him has been released. Shows that he's clearly an adult, as the article points out. He's clearly not a teenager just throwing rocks peaceably, minding his own business, AOC. He's at large as of the time the article was written. I've not seen that he's been detained. And the FBI initially offered a $50,000 cash reward for information leading to his arrest. In a second post, AOC blamed Trump for the unrest, writing that his decision to send ICE out to apprehend illegal migrants, triggered the response in Los Angeles. Trump swept to victory in November, promising to carry out the largest deportation effort in U.S. history, and has arrested more than 66,000 people and deported approximately 65,000 people in the first 100 days of his second presidency. This is what she actually tweeted. Everything was fine until Trump decided to unleash violent raids without grounds in elementary schools, shopping areas, and peaceful public spaces. What a clown you are, AOC. You can't be serious. ICE then legally blocked members of Congress entry into the facilities they are disappearing people into, escalating the situation. The language here. This isn't, you want to talk about what's inflammatory. This is what some people consume, what some people read, and assume is an accurate depiction of reality. This makes people feel like that the Trump administration is looking for anybody who looks like they could be a possible illegal alien from Central or South America, rounding them up and then disappearing them. What does that mean? What's that mean? Putting them into forced labor camps? Does that mean taking them into unknown parts of the world and just dropping them off? Does that mean she's accusing them of knocking people off here? What does this even mean? But see, that's the intent. She doesn't say anything, but she hints at or suggests whatever your imagination might lead you to believe when you read the words the Trump administration is disappearing people into these facilities. Don't know what's going on in there. Remember, AOC was the one years ago who staged the phony crying outside of the make-believe kids in cages. Remember that? She had a photo shoot. They went down to Texas somewhere near the border. They found a facility that people were going to and saying that kids were in cages. The facility was well off in the distance. They weren't allowed to enter a perimeter that was very far away from the actual facility. And so she got her photographer to go over there, get a good angle. I'm going to be in my all white attire. I'm going to put my hands in my face in my hands and sob, pretend to sob uncontrollably. You take some pictures of me, and in the caption, whenever we describe what's happening in this picture, you just need to say that I saw those kids in cages and I couldn't contain myself. I was broken down. She saw no kids in cages. She saw no kids. She saw no cages. It was all make-believe. She wasn't within, it was a half mile, I'm guessing, from the facility. It was way in the distance. It was at the gate. It was staged. It was fake. She is not to be trusted. She is a propagandist. That's what she is. She's a propagandist. Now, the same people that she convinced that was a legitimate reaction to seeing kids in cages, which what does that even mean? Kids in cages. That was her reaction to that, which of course wasn't real. But the same people who bought that line of nonsense also are buying the argument here that it was Trump that unleashed violent raids without grounds in elementary schools, as though what's the insinuation here? He's targeting little kids. He's targeting kindergartners, first graders, second graders. The only people targeting kindergartners, first graders, and second graders are the perverts out there trying to thrust on children, the LGBTQ, in particular, the trans agenda on these kids. Trump's not going after students in elementary schools. Now, she doesn't say that, but that's, of course, the insinuation. Why does she bring up schools? That's where kids are. She wants you to think about kids. The only reason that they would go into schools, which they've made this clear, if they know someone that they're looking for is in a school, they will go get the person. Again, why would they not? Well, Todd, there's kids there. Well, this is exactly the situation, again, not on the same level, but it's the same thinking that allows or that encourages Hamas to set up operations in a hospital or a school, to launch missiles from a school. Because the second that Israel tries to take out that missile threat, the world says Israel's bombing schools. And what's the implication? The implication is Israel's trying to kill Palestinian children. No, Israel's trying to stop missiles from being lobbed at its people. Israel's trying to stop the death or the threat of death and destruction for its children, its women, its citizens. But yet that's how this is said, and it works on so many people. Peaceful public places, she says. Again, all of this would be avoided. All of this would be avoided if cities like Los Angeles were not sanctuary cities. All of this would be avoided, or a lot of this anyway, would be avoided. Maybe some of it would be unavoidable because they would still send in ICE at some point. But a lot of this right now, maybe all of this right now, would be avoided if sanctuary cities simply cooperated. You don't have to send your resources to enforce immigration law. You don't have to send people out to do door-to-door raids, anything like that. That's not the point. The point is, if you would simply cooperate and hand someone over once they've been detained by the local law enforcement, to hand those folks over to ICE when ICE says, hey, we have been looking for this person. If you do that, you avoid all of this stuff. Tell me again, self-righteous AOC, who's to blame for this? Who's to blame for this? Sanctuary policies, pathetic leadership, open borders. Who's done all of this? The people are here illegally because we've had previous administrations, including the last one, which was probably the worst, who had no interest in securing our border, who had no interest in, in the safety of Americans. None of that. Didn't care. Wanted people coming in, which I think any rational person thinks they wanted them in for political purposes. They wanted, there have been programs. There's been a program done by the Biden administration where some of these folks were getting Social Security numbers incredibly quickly. There's evidence to suggest at least some of these folks may have been registered to vote and were voting. And that appears to be at least one of, perhaps the lead motivator for letting this happen. Bring in as many people as we possibly can. Tell them the Democrats are the ones who allowed them to come into this country, get them benefits, get them plugged in with jobs. Don't prevent the law from being enforced in regards to their being here. Give them as many benefits as you can and basically pay them off to eventually be voters. And if not voters, if nothing else, to be to help give blue areas of the country greater congressional representation because these folks are counted in the census. The entire thinking of the left is built around or predicated upon their political ideology and the necessity to win political battles. And this is one way to do it. It's sick. You want to talk about inhumane. You want to talk about totally not caring about your American constituents, the American people. You want to talk about putting America last. This is what that looks like. 100% what that looks like. Friends, you may have heard me say that this program is brought to you in part by Red, White, and Brand. Red, White, and Brand is a division of the Todd Huff Show. It's its own brand, it's its own division, but it's part of what we do here, part of what we've got our fingers in here. It's a business that we had run in previous years. I sold the business when I dedicated more time to this program. And now, after that non-compete has expired, we have relaunched that business. We've been helping some businesses put their logo on almost anything. That would include things like trade show materials, trade show booths, backdrops. It would include apparel, hats, polos, t-shirts. It would include promotional products. It would include awards. It would include custom-made items that we're working on one of those now to put a logo on a product that is custom made to fit for that's a piece of a fundraising campaign for a nonprofit organization. So anything, almost anything your logo goes on, Red, White, and Brand is here to help. redwhiteandbrand.com, that's the website. redwhiteandbrand.com. Promo code Todd will save you 10% on any online order, and you'll get free shipping to boot on your online orders. If you need help in the process, we're here to do that as well. Just contact us through the website. There's a way to do that. Want to make this as quick and easy for you as possible. redwhiteandbrand.com, my friend, your logo on almost anything. All right. I'm kind of done talking about the stupidity, at least for now. The stupidity, the misrepresentation of what's actually going on, the lies and deceits that are being peddled by the left. By the left when it pertains to what Trump is actually doing, why he's doing it, who's responsible for the violence. You cannot, listen, unless there's reason to say ICE is deliberately causing or the National Guard is deliberately doing something to provoke people, it's lying about the activities of people or whatever. You know, kind of what happened on January 6th when the federal agents at the Capitol basically provoked, at least in one part of the video, deliberately provoked firing, was it tear gas or something into the crowd unprovoked. That sort of thing, unless there's something like that that's happening, if they are present enforcing the law and are carrying out their responsibilities in accordance with the law, then you can't blame the people who are enforcing the law for the violence. The blame needs to be laid at the feet of the people who are engaging in this nonsense, the people who are setting the fires. I can't believe I'm having to say this. And I don't have to say this for the vast majority of you, but I have to say this on behalf of the other people that you're going to run into today or on Saturday when they do these No Kings protests or whatever nonsense they're going to be engaged in. Then I shared last night, again, there were anti-ICE protesters, if that's the way you say that, outside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse for the Pacers game. My brother had a hard time getting home, saying there were people, I don't know if it was protesters walking down the street. He had to listen to the chants as he was waiting to get in to the arena, to the Fieldhouse. We parked in the attached garage, so we avoided all that stuff. But anyway, the people who are carrying carrying themselves or conducting themselves doing things that are illegal, they're the ones to blame for this. This is not hard. This is not hard to understand. But yet, the left acts as though it's a real controversy that the presence of people who are there to protect buildings, to enforce the law, to keep the public safe, and all that sort of stuff. The media acts like their presence there, their mere presence, is what causes all this nonsense to unfold. AOC wants to blame the presence of the National Guard and the LAPD and everybody else. Now, Karen Bass has declared this an emergency. She's instituted a curfew. So I would say that you got to at least account for that. But again, facts rarely matter to these folks. They've decided that Trump is to blame, and now they just have to come up with a narrative that fulfills, that fits that explanation. That's where we are here. What about this, though? Headline, Kash Patel confirms FBI is tracking who is funding the anti-ICE riots in Los Angeles. This is at drewberquist.com. Federal authorities are investigating the origins and funding sources of the recent wave of violent protests that began in Los Angeles and have since spread across the country. The FBI confirmed it is examining potential financial connections behind demonstrations, which escalated into full-scale riots over the weekend following immigration enforcement operations. FBI Director Kash Patel stated in a message to Just the News the FBI is investigating any and all monetary connections responsible for these riots. What began as peaceful protests in response to immigration aid raids in Los Angeles late last week quickly escalated. Over the weekend, more than 1,000 individuals were involved in assaults on immigration officers. Listen, these are numbers that dwarf the numbers of January 6th. More than 1,000 individuals were involved in assaults on immigration officers, arson of autonomous vehicles, looting, highway shutdowns, and attacks on law enforcement with concrete projectiles. Listen, I'm not here to defend all the actions. I never have. I've never been one. In fact, sometimes to the dismay of people on the conservative side of things, I've never defended every person and every action taken on January 6th. There are people who broke the law, and they should deal with the consequences of the law. But let's face it here, my friends. If the people on the streets of Los Angeles were the ones who had stormed the Capitol, would that building have looked the same after the federal agents regained control of the facility afterwards? I mean, they have burnt Los Angeles to the ground. Have you seen, again, they knocked windows out at the Capitol building. Not acceptable. Not good. But there's video of them being let into the Capitol in places, some of them, and they're walking in single file down the hallways. Is that what it looks like when the Air Jordans were were looted in the city of Los Angeles? Listen, I'm not here to defend, but I'm saying let's just report on these fairly. If they reported on these two things equally, this would be January 6th times some number. So more than 1,000 individuals were involved in assaults on immigration officers, arson of autonomous vehicles, looting, highway shutdowns. There were no highway shutdowns on January 6th by the protesters or rioters, and attacks on law enforcement with concrete projectiles. Just be consistent is all I say. I'm out of time this segment, my friends. Sit tight. Back in just a minute.
Hi, I'm Richard Karn. and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting radio-exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.
Welcome back, my friends. So, Kash Patel, as I shared last segment, is looking to try to figure out where the funding for all this stuff is happening. It's a fair question. Where is the funding coming from? Who is the one responsible for financing this? And you can say, well, Todd, this is I mean, at some point, if you're in the streets for days with thousands upon thousands of people, when you have the activities taking place that I read last segment over the weekend, this was just over 2 days over the weekend, more than 1,000 individuals were involved in assaults on immigration officers. So 1,000 individuals assaulting officers, according to the report here. Arson of autonomous vehicles. Looting, we've seen videos of that. Highway shutdowns, which, by the way, the second you do that, that is not peaceful either. People think, well, I'm not hurting anybody. Well, you don't know. Number one, you could be delaying someone, preventing someone from doing something that is very important, interfering with emergency personnel, someone who needs to get medical treatment. That's certainly possible, but you're interfering with people's abilities to conduct business, to live their lives, to maybe go pick their kids up at school. I saw a video the other day of a woman, and they wouldn't let her through. And the protesters, the folks that had shut down travel through the roads, started talking about trying to protect children from being separated from their parents or some such thing, something with kids. And she says, look, I'm trying to work to provide for my child, which, of course, is the truth with a lot of people who are driving through Los Angeles. They're trying to get to their jobs so that they can get paid and take care of their families, pay their mortgages. For a lot of these people out there protesting, if you don't ever have to go to work, I can't believe that they're all independently wealthy. Where's the money coming from? That seems like a very, very valid question, my friends. And speaking about where money is coming from, you also want to know where money is going. And if you're tired of spending money, your hard-earned money, at businesses that turn around and support leftist causes with that money, it's time to check out Freedom Marketplace. Freedom Marketplace is a free, searchable directory of businesses that share your conservative values, businesses that have vowed not to support leftist candidates or leftist causes. You don't have to log in. There's no strings attached. This is just good, patriotic businesses pushing in the same direction that you are. Check it out today at freedommarketplace.net. Again, freedommarketplace.net. Liberty and business for all, my friends. Going back to this article, Kash Patel says, look, we're going to try to figure out where the money train is here. Images circulated widely showing rioters waving foreign flags, including those of Mexico, while vehicles burned in the background. Resurfaced footage of Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum's remarks from the previous month also sparked concern. Sheinbaum had threatened to mobilize in response to legislative proposals to tax remittances on Mexico. to Mexico, I should say. Basically, what that means is there have been proposals to tax money that people are sending back to Mexico. So if you have people, one of the things that, of course, people who come to this country illegally want is a better life. Sometimes they move here with their entire families. Sometimes they come alone and send the money back home. There's been proposals or talks of taxing that money. The president of Mexico says they'll mobilize if that's the direction that we're going to go. And so you wonder, well, I mean, is there some connection involvement here? On Monday, Sheinbaum condemned the violence but affirmed Mexico's support for all Mexicans regardless of immigration status. Listen, there's a lot of people who have vested interest in this situation remaining the same. Lots of forces, lots of people who benefit from what we've done here. But the American people haven't. The American people have suffered greatly because of illegal immigration, for a variety of reasons, for lots of reasons. The direct cost, the crime, the drug trafficking, the human trafficking. You've got the fact that it's changed, quite possibly, almost guaranteed, it's changed the congressional breakdown, the number of representatives given to states per the apportionment of those members by law. So if a state is counted to have more people because of an illegal alien population, at some point, representatives have been given to a state because of the number of illegal immigrants living in their nation. You want to talk about a threat to our constitutional republic? That is one of the obvious threats to our constitutional republic. You have people representing people who are not even supposed to be here, which makes no sense whatsoever. By the way, that's also how electoral votes. You want to know how many electoral votes your state gets? That could change every 10 years. We're halfway to the 2030 census. 2030 census is going to count people, and if it counts illegal aliens, it's going to end up moving congressional members of Congress to one state that has a higher number of illegal aliens. Don't believe that can't happen. Don't believe that hasn't happened, my friends. There's some estimates that multiple seats have been apportioned and granted to states because of illegal immigration, illegal immigrants that are here in this country. That directly impacts the state's number of electoral votes, because the number of electoral votes are your number of representatives plus your 2 senators. Now, everybody gets 2 senators in spite. It's funny listening to the left sometimes. They talk about how gerrymandering affects Senate races, which is absurd. Unless you consider the drawing of state lines gerrymandering. But anyway, senators will remain the same regardless if your state has 1 illegal alien or 50 million. You still get 2 senators. But your congressional delegation, your congressional breakdown could certainly change. And so will your electoral votes. So if a state has, say, 2 more representatives, or one more representative because of the number of illegal aliens in a state, which is certainly possible, then you'll have 1 more electoral vote as well. I mean, there's a lot of problems to say that this, or a lot of reasons to say that this is a threat to our constitutional republic, my friends, but this is a real threat. And who's funding this is a real problem. Now, what I want to talk about in the time I have remaining here is a clip of Trump. Trump is speaking at Fort Bragg, and I'll have to get into this in the next final segment. Trump spoke at Fort Bragg talking about talking about what was happening in Los Angeles. And he had some words about that. But he also, of course, riled up the people on the political left, which led MSNBC to write this headline: Trump's Fort Bragg speech was a serious step toward ending democracy. Now, MSNBC sees no concern of what's happening in Los Angeles when it comes to the riots. They're not concerned about the number of people who are here in this country illegally. They're not concerned about the impact on things that I just described on our society, the cost that illegal immigration brings to our country, the potential to change the electoral college count, the number of representatives. They're not concerned about any of that. That, in their estimation, poses no threat to our quote-unquote democracy. What does, however, is Trump's speech actually talking about regaining law and order in Los Angeles and other places as well. So that's what I want to talk about briefly in the time we have remaining after the break. Friends, you care about this country. I know that you do, but you cannot fight for America if you're not taking care of yourself. That's why I tell you about Solti. It's an all-natural, clinically proven supplement that lowers cholesterol safely. No prescriptions, no doctor's visits, just 2 soft gels a day. That's all it takes. It's not a drug, but that doesn't mean it doesn't work, my friends, because science has spoken, and it has. I take this product myself. I think you should consider it as well. We need healthy, strong Americans, of course, for your family, for your business, for your faith, but also for this great nation. Don't let high cholesterol and heart health get in the way of that. Go to Solti.com, promo code Todd, to save 50%, get free shipping on your order. Solti.com, SOLTEA, promo code Todd. Quick timeout, my friends. Back in a minute. Welcome back, my friends. Trump spoke at Fort Bragg, and his comments, his speech has upset, as you might well imagine, the media, the radical left. This is pjmedia.com. This is in the stack of stuff, by the way, with everything else. I'm going to get to this as quickly as possible with the time I have. The time I have remaining. Trump speaks at Fort Bragg and the press loses its mind. David Manny writes, this is why it always comes back. This is what it always comes back to with these people. Trump says something bold, the media howls dictator, and the rest of us are left scratching our heads, wondering how we got from a speech to a constitutional crisis. Take Fort Bragg. President Trump stood in front of American soldiers and delivered a hard-hitting, no-apology speech. He talked about law and order. He criticized liberal-run cities. He called out the dysfunction we all see every day. But because he did it in front of our military, MSNBC melted into a puddle of Cold War-era paranoia. Civil war, they cried, militarizing politics. You'd think he rode in on a tank. That reminds me of Michael Dukakis, circa 1988. Let's talk about what was really said. Trump didn't threaten anyone. He didn't give orders. What he provided was an honest assessment of the mess the Democratic leaders have created and how their failures hit hardest on working Americans and service members alike. He called out crime, border chaos, and the soft focus group language that passes for leadership in D.C. He reminded the troops they serve a country worth fighting for, not just one worth apologizing for. That used to be standard fare. Now it's fascism, apparently. I want to play a clip of this. You can decide for yourself if this is worth getting your panties in a bunch over. But here's President Trump speaking to soldiers at Fort Bragg about what's happening in Los Angeles.
And before going further, I want to say a few words about the situation in Los Angeles, California. Have you heard of the place?
Have you heard of the place?
Where I've deployed thousands of National Guard troops and hundreds of Marines to protect federal law enforcement from the attacks of a vicious and violent mob.
That's a fact.
Generations of Army heroes did not shed their blood on distant shores only to watch our country be destroyed by invasion and third world lawlessness here at home, like is happening in California. As Commander-in-Chief, I will not let that happen. It's never going to happen. What you're witnessing in California is a full-blown assault on peace, on public order, and on national sovereignty carried out by rioters bearing foreign flags. Within the span of a few decades, Los Angeles has gone from being one of the cleanest, safest, and most beautiful cities on earth to being a trash heap with entire neighborhoods under the control of transnational gangs and criminal networks. It's horrible what's happened so quickly. Very simply, we will liberate Los Angeles and make it free, clean, and safe again. It's happening very quickly. Under the Trump administration, this anarchy will not stand. We will not allow federal agents to be attacked, and we will not allow an American city to be invaded and conquered by a foreign enemy. And that's what they are.
So, listen, the oath that you take when you join the military is to protect the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And listen, I understand this concept. You don't want to, use the military on citizens. No one's suggesting that. We're not engaging in a war on citizens of the United States. We are protecting a city that is in pure chaos. We are sending resources to ensure law and order. We're not conducting military operations. This isn't like Fallujah or Baghdad or anywhere else that we have fought. This is about protecting the city, giving the resources to the city, even though they don't want them, even though they're content on letting this thing burn to the ground even more than it is now, by taking less resources, by saying they don't want the troops, by saying the presence of the troops causes people to want to do more damage, engage in more rioting, conduct more looting. What is fascist about that? What is fascist about telling the troops that we are a nation that's going to oppose what real fascism looks like, by the way? This is intimidation. This is an attempt to get what they want. You could make the case that this is a type of terrorism. If you are engaging in violent behavior, this is the textbook definition of terrorism, by the way. If you are engaging in a behavior that is designed to inflict terror, to cause fear in the minds of your political adversaries, with the intent to change the political outcome or political solution to a problem, you are engaging in terrorism. And this is akin, again, as I've said before, to a big temper tantrum. Are you going to give in to the temper tantrum, or are you going to pull in enough resources to ensure that the temper tantrums are not allowed to happen? They want to destroy their own property, have at it, but they can't threaten other people, destroy other property, hurt other people. That's what's happening in Los Angeles. I got to run, though, my friends. Have a great day. SDG.